লোবান আমান ভাই হচ্ছে টেকনোলজি আর্কিটেক্ট অ্যান্ড গেম মাস্টার অফ জিওন।
Hello, everyone. It's hard to come near the end. Everyone's energy is a bit low, but I'll try to be a bit different and make it a bit exciting. So it's been like 3 hours. I'm running out of speech, Dixie, and nobody showed any code. So mine is going to be a bit different. Our 90% of my talk is going to be diving straight into the code. I don't know if you like it or not, but it'll be a bit different. So if you're feeling sleepy, I suggest, wipe your face, get your thinking hats out, and let's look at what we got to see here. Start kar aage, I want to answer a question that someone posed a bit earlier about ES6. At my company, we have switched to using ES6 100% in both our backend and our front-end code. So I would answer your question by saying, yes, ES6 is ready right now. The transpilers is ready because we've been using it for 4 months now, both backend and front-end code, ebong kono problem hoy nai. The browsers actually have almost full support. Even internet, Microsoft Edge has 95% support. Firefox Chrome is like 98, and Safari, weirdly, has 100% support of ES6. I don't know how that happened, but something worth noting. Anyway, let's start with my talk. My topic is this. Please wait, for I promise to rid you of callback hell. This talk is going to be about JavaScript. I'm not going to go into as much of the overview as Mafin Bhai did earlier, but thank you very much for that. I'm going to talk about a personal story that I had with my experience with JavaScript. Now, those of you who know me know that I am a big-time Java and PHP advocate, and I've been working with that for 10 বছর বলা যায়. And just recently, I have joined a new place and started working full-time with JavaScript, something I have like almost, the only experience I have is front-end development. এখন, the place where I'm working now, it's full-stack JavaScript, back-end, front-end, everywhere. And I'll be honest with you, I hated it. I hated it so much. Like, you can ask my colleagues, I'm like, what have I done? I mean, keno ei jaygaয় join korchi. But it was an interesting journey, and I have come to like it now, and I've come to manage to find the flavor of JavaScript that I like, and I'm going to talk about that. So this is a story of a personal journey where I went to the depths of hell, and I found some warm sunshine, finally. Okay, I'm Loban Rahman. I'm a technology architect at Jion Bangladesh Limited. We're a healthcare and technology company focusing on making well-being universal. If you want to know more about us, you can go to our website, jion.co. All right, so let me show a little bit of what I am talking about. So a little bit more about my story. Since I'm from a PHP and Java background, I'm used to, more often than not, doing synchronous programming. And I will show that over here. This is the kind of code I was used to writing. This is in JavaScript, but when I first started writing using Node.js, I'm like, acha, let's make it look just like my PHP code. So what do you usually do in a typical application, in a web application? You can read from a file, you can parse it, you can do some HTTP calls, then you can save it to the database. And the first time, আমি যখন প্রথম Node.js JavaScript when I'm writing, I would intentionally choose the synchronous versions of all the libraries. So this is a synchronous HTTP library, synchronous version of Mongo database, so that my work will look just like it usually does when you're writing Java or PHP code. Read the file, store it in a variable, parse it, store it in a variable, do a HTTP request, store it in a variable, do a database call, store it in a variable. However, Node.js, this doesn't work, for those of you who have experience. It's a single-threaded application. So the moment you try to do anything that does blocks on I/O, your application will hang. And এই জন্যই it has an asynchronous API. If you try to do anything with a file system call, a database call, an HTTP call, or any lengthy calculations, your application will hang if you're doing synchronous calls. It has to be asynchronous. So you have to do it using callbacks. Usually in Node.js, callbacks are like, the first argument is an error result, and then the second argument is a success result. So you have something that looks like this. I'm going to call an API, argument dibu, and then I have to pass it a callback to get my result. Either it will be an error, which I have to handle, or it will be a success, which I can then use. If I'm using it in another asynchronous function, I'm going to put this here, I'm going to put another callback, and then I have to handle that callback, and I have to keep going. And you can see where this is going. So I went back to my code, and then like, all right, this is not going to work. Let's make this using callbacks. So I mean, একই জিনিসটা লিখছি আবার, but now using an asynchronous API. So what were the things I was doing before? I was reading a file, I was parsing it into a JSON object, then based on the contents of the file, I was doing an HTTP request and saving the content of that request, the response টা আসে, I'm saving it to my database. This is what it looked like when I started making with callbacks. I'm going to read the file, আমি একটা callback দেব, callback এর মধ্যে error থাকবে, I have to check for the error. If not, I then try to parse it, check for the error. If not, I do some more calls over here with some more callbacks. Already, the code looks horrible. I mean, this is where you're seeing just one page. I want the entire code base of where I joined. Thousands of lines of code look like this. And if you just spend just a few hours on it, pura matha garam hoye jay. I mean, I don't know how much of you have had this experience, but this was hell on earth for me. And I'm like, what is this? This can't be the kind of JavaScript that everyone writes. Why is JavaScript so popular? That doesn't make any sense if this is the kind of code you have to write to get anything done. So I'm like, there must be a better way. And there is a better way, and that better way is with things that have been standardized in ES6, which is what I want to go at now, and that is called promises. So a quick survey. How many of you do JavaScript development over here? Can I see a quick raise of hands? Acha. Kishuta ase. Of those, how many of you uses callbacks? Shobai? And how many of you uses promises? Okay, so not too many JavaScript developers, but the number that are here, you do understand what promises are. So I won't spend too much time on that. Our promise is, as you know, an object that encapsulates a future value. Because it's asynchronous, if I call a function, it's not going to directly give me the answer. Okay, instead, it will give me a promise that I promise to you that when I get the answer, a value মধ্যে থাকবে in this variable. So a promise can either be success or it can be an error. And I can use these by attaching callbacks to them using then functions and catch functions. So the nice thing about promises is, unlike callbacks, which look like this, promises look a little bit nicer. So let's spend a little bit of time looking at this code. এখানে আমি একটা API call I would do, passing in an argument, and I would get my result inside a callback. I would then pass that result into another function and get another result in another callback. And it keeps nesting further and further in. You can see an example of what happens over here. You can see like this immense nesting on what is actually just sequential code. I'm just doing 4 steps. So I told my team in my company, okay, you know what? Let's change all our code to using promises instead. This code looks ugly. I can't stand to look at this anymore. And we changed it to look like this now. And things are a lot better now. This is looking a little bit similar to what our synchronous code was before, where I can see here, I'm reading a file, then I am parsing it, then I am calling an HTTP request, getting them all together, then I am taking the content and putting it into my database. So it's starting to look similar to my synchronous code. Still not good enough though. doesn't look the same. It's still a lot more code to understand. It's still really, really simple. I'm reading a file, saving it in a variable. I'm parsing it, saving it in a variable. Agenishta, I'm still not getting using promises. So I was still unsatisfied. The good news is that with ES7, I know we haven't even decided whether we're going to use ES6 yet, but there's a new standard ES7 which will be ratified by this year that solves that problem for you. And I just want to introduce that to you. This is called the await and async keywords. Amra, if we go to here, this is the next logical step to using promises. It's a keyword in ES7. It's not standardized yet, but it's already working in Node.js. You can use Babel transpiler to convert it to ES6 if you want, or ES5. And what it does is it makes asynchronous code look like synchronous code. Kibhabe? This is what it looks like. I'm calling that same API that used to return a promise, but instead of calling a then function on it, I just call the await keyword, and I can store it in a result. I call another function, I call the await keyword, and I store it in a result. I can use a try-catch statement to handle any kinds of errors. And the beauty of this is asynchronous code. Kintu, it looks just like the synchronous code that I had earlier. It doesn't have then functions, it doesn't have callbacks, it just looks nice and clean, simple. You can see the progression of calling a function, storing the variable, calling a function, storing the variable, but it's handling fully asynchronous APIs. And so, I got back to my team and we're like, all right, we're going to use this now. We're going to change all our code, the entire code base. And this is what we came up with. This is an asynchronous version, but using the new keywords that were there. And as you can see, it looks just like our synchronous code. In fact, I have a little example over here where I put the code side by side. And we can take a look. This is the synchronous code on the left side, and this is the asynchronous code on the right side. And you can see that apart from a few words like await, the entire code is almost exactly the same. Even though they're completely doing different APIs here, one being synchronous and one being asynchronous. But it's much, much easier to maintain. It's much, much nicer. And I finally could tell my team and everyone else that, you know what, JavaScript ain't so bad. I can get used to this now. So I hope this little demonstration has given you a little bit more knowledge about JavaScript, why people say, why Marfiner has an entire talk about why he hates it, but he also can see why it's good too.